The hour being 7:15, this is a meeting of the Appropriations Committee. I am Councilor Jack Eccles, the Vice Chair. Joining me are Councilors Tremontosi, McMaster, Migliorelli, Thomas, Gregoritis, Garape, Stewart, and President Sinella. This provides a notice of the quorum for the record. In accordance with the open meeting law, this meeting is being recorded and broadcast on our local cable access channel, MMTV, as well as live streamed on the MMTV website and available for future viewing through the City of Melrose meeting portal. At this time, with no objection, I will open public comment. This is the portion of the meeting where any member of the public can come forward to speak towards any item on our agenda this evening.
Motion to open the floor for public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to open the floor for public comment by Councilor McMaster, seconded by Councilor Tremontosi. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The floor is now open for public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak tonight? Seeing none.
Can we check on remote?
Oh, yeah.
If there is anyone in the attendee of the WebEx meeting who would like to speak, if you'd raise your digital hand at this time. There is no one raising their digital hand.
All right. Is there an objection to closing public comment at this time?
Sorry, excuse me.
Oh.
We have one gentleman who put in the chat he would like to speak. I am unmuting. Mr. McSweeney, can you hear us? Well, Mr. McSweeney, I cannot hear you. Hold on one second. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me, Kristen?
I can hear you now. Can you guys hear Mr. McSweeney? Mr. McSweeney, can you hear me? Let's try it again. I'll unmute him. Mr. McSweeney, can you hear me?
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, great. You can hear me. Thanks. Tim McSweeney, 160 West Wyoming Avenue. I am speaking briefly on behalf of the PED Bike Committee with respect to the request for information on the Vinton Street water main break. I did send a note to the council earlier today, and our questions are about the street reconstruction. As the email I sent spells out, in 2016, the city adopted a complete streets policy, and in brief, that policy, which is a prerequisite to participating in the MassDOT Complete Streets Grant Program, which the city of Melrose does participate in successfully. The policy basically says that for any road project in the city, whether it's new construction, maintenance, expansion, or reconstruction, that's an opportunity to apply complete streets design principles to the roadway, with an emphasis on an equitable approach to accommodating multiple modes of transportation. The committee has been trying to find out from the city what the actual roadway reconstruction plans for Vinton Street are. And the reason for our request is that that's a direct access route to the Roosevelt School. And as an uphill portion of the roadway, that's a perfect place to put a climbing lane, which for members of the public who might be listening, is essentially an uphill bike lane, which allows for non-motorized travelers, like families going to school, to just take it slowly on the uphill portion while motorized vehicular traffic can pass them on the uphill. This is a really important street in our perspective, not only because it directly leads to the Roosevelt School, but also because there are no driveways on it, which makes putting an uphill climbing lane, a protected uphill climbing lane, really feasible at that location. So we very much appreciate the council's inquiry into the water main break. We appreciate all the work that the city's been putting into reconstructing this. And while we obviously understand that the water service is the key focus of this request, we very much appreciate the opportunity to hear from the administration about reconstruction plans for this roadway and what opportunities the city sees to apply complete streets principles for our Roosevelt families in that neighborhood. Thank you, everybody, and thank you very much for providing the opportunity to facilitate remote comment. Thank you.
Anything else in queue? Okay.
That is no one else.
Seeing no one else, without objection, the floor is now closed for public comment. The first order on our agenda tonight is Order 2021-154, election of a clerk of committees to pursuant to the city charter for the city of Melrose, Section 2-8, appointments of the city council. I believe President Snell, you plan to speak on this?
Thank you, Vice Chair Eccles. I just want to briefly just give an update on the process that we went through over the last several weeks. We had Human Resources post that position. We had several applicants apply. I had a committee set up that helped with reviewing the applicants. We whittled those down to 5, and then for a first round, and then we had a second round of interviews. So I'm delighted tonight that we finally have Andrew coming before us this evening. So thank you.
If there's no objection, we'd welcome you to come up and say a few words. We'll suspend the rules.
Thank you.
I make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Garapay, seconded by Councilor Trementozzi. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, floor is yours.
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Andrew Gabriel. I would like to start by thanking everyone for being here tonight. I would especially like to thank the City Council for allowing me to speak, and for President Sinella for allowing me to speak as well. Just to give you some background on me, I worked for the Secretary of State for 2 years. There I was instrumental in helping administer the public records law and ensuring government transparency. And this all began years ago in high school. There I was tasked with writing a report on local government and learning about the ins and outs of local government. And so I did the research and learned a lot. And that literally sparked my interest in municipal government and local government. And so I aspired to pursue a career in public service at that point, and that's something I knew I wanted to do. So I am here tonight, and I look forward to bringing my knowledge, my expertise to the city of Melrose and to work with the city council and the whole city as a whole. And I thank you for this opportunity and look forward to being a public servant in this city.
Thank you. Are there any questions or remarks from councilors? Councilor Guerrero.
Thank you, Vice Chair Eccles. I had an opportunity to interview Andrew and just wanted to echo how impressive his resume is and how impressive he is in person. He really articulated his passion and dedication for public service. He brings a wealth of experience on issues like public records and records retention. He has familiarity with open meeting law and engaging and running public meetings. And he actually talked really passionately about his work in retail and how that has prepared him for customer service, and I think any of us who have ever had a retail job can certainly understand that. He's bilingual, he speaks Arabic, which I think brings some needed breadth to our city services, and he talked a lot about wanting to understand the style of each counselor and figure out how he can best work with us, which in a position where you report to 11 different people, I think that's a really key distinction to make, so I'm really happy to have him before us tonight, and I hope that you'll be joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a recommendation for passage.
Second.
Second, so we have a motion for recommendation for passage from Councilor Guerrero, seconded by President Sinella. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
The second order on agenda tonight is Order 2021-134, an appropriation from free cash, account 01-324001, in the amount of $50,000 to Planning Professional Services, account 011752-529000 for wayfinding projects. I believe we have a member of the administration here tonight to speak on this, and the rules are in suspension, so we have Ms. Shinura Battaglia to kind of talk on this order.
Hi. Am I?
The floor is yours. Yeah.
Okay, well, Denise already sort of introduced what we have before you. Essentially, we're looking to build off of the wayfinding and creative placemaking work that we've been doing over the last year. We sort of started our effort looking, very much looking at sort of these wayfinding signage concepts, but then sort of public art kind of took up a lot of our time, learned a whole lot about managing a public art program, and that was obviously a really positive experience to sort of see that implemented, to have kind of opportunities for people to get out and see these new works in the community during COVID. And now we're really interested about getting back to the signage component and the wayfinding for the ability for it to, enhance active transportation. There's research that shows how it can, make people more likely to, obviously ditch their cars, but also just be more likely to walk someplace when they know exactly what the distance is or they know exactly where they're going. When we did our engagement process about a year ago, we heard from hundreds of people, and there really was a strong response towards this idea of wayfinding, but we never really settled on an exact signage concept. We sort of left off with a couple conceptual ideas, and when we first presented that to the community at our webinar, it was very split. So there was really no clear indication that one approach was more favored than the other. So we were sort of interested in using this as an opportunity to reevaluate kind of the identity, what people sort of see as the identity in Melrose, and how that would translate into a signage and wayfinding campaign. Signage meaning all different sorts of things. So there's some parts of it is more landmark signage, just to kind of tell you you've arrived in this district or you've arrived in Melrose. Other kinds of signage could be trail signage or historical markers, or other sorts of things that could identify important points in the city. Things like updating the kiosks or adding more of those. And then directional signs, like I mentioned, that would be targeted towards both pedestrians and cyclists, and also vehicles. And some other benefits, the same way that sort of people are maybe more inclined to walk someplace when they know exactly where they're going. Wayfinding can have positive benefits in terms of cars, if people are more likely to know exactly where they're going, or know that they could access parking, maybe not right at their destination, but nearby. Anything that we could do to cut down on travel times and get more cars sort of off the road is part of this whole concept. So feel free to ask me any questions.
Thank you. In queue, I have Councilor Thomas, Councilor McMaster. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Councilor Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Eccles. Good evening. Welcome. It says here that there's 3 vendors that we're going to send bids out to. Have any of the vendors worked in Melrose before? Are there any signage examples that we could see in present day?
So we haven't gotten that far, obviously. So part of what this work would entail is kind of getting things in a position to take it to bid, which requires more detailed design drawings and whatnot. So we're not at that stage yet, but I think, if we would definitely want to preference, we would definitely try to preference, I think, a local sign maker if possible.
Sure.
For some signage, like temporary signage we put up earlier for advertising the art projects. We put up kind of the yard signs, and we used, I can't remember the name, but a local guy who's great. So, whatever we can to keep our money local, we definitely try to do.
Have there been any discussions about changing the Welcome to Melrose signs? Or the Welcome to Melrose sign on the Fellsway?
Well, we definitely kind of heard about the sign, and, some people kind of have complaints about it, both that it can be an obstruction, but, it's, at the same time, those signs are pretty nice, so we're definitely not trying to, get rid of good things that, people like. So that would be part of this process, would be kind of evaluating, what signage we would want to keep, we would want to replace, definitely prioritizing things we could add in new kinds of locations. I think replacing existing things would be probably a lower priority. And especially those landmark signs are also quite expensive, so that would be.
And the estimates of $50,000, there's a good faith estimate you can get what you want done for that $50,000?
I think so. I mean, a lot of the signage, the directional signage, is just a couple $100s. So we really can do any combination. And I think if there seems to be a really big emphasis on wanting trail signage, we could kind of bolster that. If people really want to see bigger things, we could prioritize that. I think we just really want to hear a little bit more about what people are interested in.
Sure. I'm sure there's going to be some need in Ward 7 for trail markings.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Councilor McMaster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Nurse. Thank you for being here. Please thank Ms. Gaffey for the supplemental memo, in particular the second part of the memo, the wayfinding implementation at $30,000 provides the breakdown that I think we needed to know. Can you just provide a little additional context for the first part of the memo, the wayfinding design and engagement at $20,000? Put that in context. Is that $20,000 going to Selbert and Perkins for that continued work, or what specifically is that going to fund in a practical sense?
So we're not actually committed to working with them either. So I think we actually will probably have to take it out to bid. We just need to do the 3 quotes because we ended up, having to extend our previous contract a little bit. So we're not necessarily committed to working with them, but yes, that money would go towards the consultant to basically help us run the final engagement push, host a survey, analyze the results, narrow down, kind of present the 3 concepts, find out what people like and don't like about them, narrow down a final design, and then create those kind of detailed, I guess they're called design development drawings, that would then be in a position to go to the fabricator.
So the tasks under those 4 bullet points will be outsourced to somebody, may not be Selbert Perkins. No money none of the $20,000, I assume, would be used to compensate staff time. It's all outsourced?
I mean, staff time would definitely be spent on it. We just, I guess our money sort of, I don't exactly know where.
So there's no expectation that this would, the $20,000 would supplement the staff of city employees, but that the money is being used entirely to retain outside parties to do the work?
Right, exactly. That, essentially that being work that is just not really in our wheelhouse, doing that kind of design work.
Thank you.
And that's a conservative estimate.
Councilor Garapay.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Just, and thank Ms. Gaffney for the work she sent, or the email she sent, the information on it. I see that there's three concepts on here, and one is being the Victorian one, and looking at the map, it's kind of tough to see. Is there any in the historical district, any of those signs that would be in the historical district? I know there's an ordinance right now that states on buildings, they have to, all signage on buildings has to go in front of the Historical District Commission. I'm assuming that you would get them involved ahead of the game on that?
Yes, definitely. And I think, I think any signage that would be in the historical district, we would want to kind of coordinate it with any other kind of historical signage we might do outside of the district. So, we might be able to have some consistency there, but we would certainly engage the Historic District Commission and also the Historical Commission.
Great, thank you very much.
Councilor MWRA.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Schnurbeck-Tagley, for being here tonight. Just have a question. So the three concepts were presented to the committee there was no consensus on the three.
They were presented both to our Wayfinding and Creative Placemaking Committee and also to the public at a, online open house webinar.
Okay, and there was no, like...
It was like 30%, 30%, 30%, so there really was no clear winner.
Okay, so
I
then...
think we were hoping like one would really stand out. We were like, oh, okay, we could just go do that, but the results really told us that it's not just about figuring out exactly what signage people want, but like what is the identity they're trying to kind of capture.
Right. So the 20,000 would be used to go back to the drawing board on all three, or?
I don't think we'd go back to the drawing board. I think we would present those three concepts and kind of get more insight on what people like and don't like about each of them, and then use that to come up with the best concept or something that maybe captures a little bit of each of those things. And so I think we would probably want to host some kind of survey or, maybe, I'm not sure if in a person sort of forum could work, but we definitely want to present sort of the different concepts and see what people like and they don't like. And they do kind of they can range in cost, so, that would be part of the equation too.
Okay. Also, the estimates for the signage, how are those arrived at?
So the consultant that we worked with on the first part, that's just,
Okay.
those are prices that they're sort of seeing, and they've worked with a number of communities. This is sort of their bread and butter, doing this
Okay.
wayfinding, creative placemaking work, so.
I would sort of challenge the plaques. It's at 150 each. I don't know what materials they were thinking of using, but as someone who does this in my day job, it's usually more than that. So I would just, I don't know, push back on that process for some of these.
I would assume those are like kind of an aluminum plaque.
Yes, still, I've seen it up to like 3 times that cost. So just something to know when moving forward and working with the consultants. Thank you.
And we would also, I think, try to have as much installation done, in-house as possible. So whatever our DPW is able to do, we would love to have them assist if
that makes
possible.
sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other councilors wishing to speak? Seeing no one, what is the will of the committee?
Motion to recommend for passage?
Second.
Motion recommended made by Councilor Gregoritis, seconded by President Sinella. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This motion passes. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much. Have a great night.
And the final order on our agenda tonight is order info 2021-1, request for information, Vinton / Fellsway pipe breakage. And that's sponsored by Councilor Tremontosi. So if you'd like to introduce the order.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, but Chairman for this evening. I had requested this informational item, as we all know, about the water main break on Vinton Street, the Fellsway. I wanted to get some information, and I wanted to get some answers, some questions that I had. What caused the breakage? What's going to take to repair? What's the cost? Who's responsible for the cost, and so forth. Since my initial request, I have been in communication with the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. They've been giving me some weekly updates, and I appreciated that. Specifically, Mr. Sean Navin, he's the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, and he's been kind enough to keep me posted with some weekly updates. His last weekly update was last Tuesday, wherein he said that the contractor, RJV, has activated water services to the homes. The crews have removed temporary bypass and cleaned up the overall site. All remaining items have been demobilized, traffic detour signs have been removed, and Vinton Street is officially open and operational. That's the last update that I had. I've been by there on numerous occasions watching the construction. I appreciate the fact that the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority has stepped up to the plate and did the repairs there. But there still is left unanswered questions. What caused it to begin with, and what's the overall impact to the city, and cost. It appears to me that still paving needs to be done, final paving. There's paving and markings and stripes that have been placed on the roadway. And I'd like to get some further answers. I think Mr. McSweeney had some good ideas and suggestions about what's going to happen with that roadway as a passageway to the Roosevelt School and to the Fellsway. So my thought is that I would like to hold this in committee, invite the Director of Public Works to appear before us and be prepared to address any of the concerns and questions that we might have. That'll give us an opportunity at a later date at the next hearing for her to give us a presentation and what's would be the next in line.
Point of information, our Director of Public Works is here this evening. I don't know if she was planning on speaking.
Oh, there you are in the back there. I didn't see you. Well, come on over if you want.
Actually, we have two members of the MWRA.
Oh, terrific.
And they have prepared a presentation, if you'd like me to
Yeah.
start up.
My apologies. I did not realize that you were here in anticipation of this. I thought it was just going to be taken up at a later date. Perfect.
That's
Let's
okay.
do it.
Okay. Dave, before you...
Thanks, Chris. I didn't, thanks for letting me know.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you to the council, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm David Kopis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. And with me is Corey Barrett, our Director of Construction. We've prepared a short PowerPoint presentation with some photos of the construction in order to be responsive, Counselor, to the concerns that you raised. But before we get started, I'd like to take a minute to thank everyone in the room for their partnership and for their patience with the MWRA as we move to repair this water main and reconstruct the surrounding area. Director Elena Proikis Ellis, Councilor, and others who are involved on behalf of the City of Melrose. We appreciate your assistance in getting this job done quickly and effectively, and as we always do, we try to leave the area in a better state than when we started. I hope when we're completed with this that you'll agree that we've done that. So if you could go to the first slide, please, I can describe what happened on the evening of Tuesday evening of April 27th, around 8 o'clock at night. Our Operations Control Center received low pressure alarms, and around the same time we received calls from the Melrose DPW about water leaking at the surface near the intersection of Vinton Street and the Lynn Fellsway. This is a picture that we took at that night when we arrived on the scene. You can go to the next slide. This is an overview showing the location of the MWRA water mains running down Fellsway and then up Vinton Street, and again, the location of the break highlighted there. You can go to the next slide, please. And this is a photo of the intersection. The roads were closed. There was water all over, and detours had to be put in place, and MWRA crews began isolating the main to shut down the break right away. Go to the next slide, please. And then, so we did receive low pressure and no water complaints from residents of Melrose because of the amount of water that was leaving the main. There was a reduction in pressure, which affected many Melrose residents. When we were able to isolate the main, those pressures resumed and people were able to get their water again. This is a picture right after we isolated. We brought in a pipeline crew from our MWRA yard in Chelsea to clean up the intersection, and our primary focus was to get the road open in time for morning commute traffic, which we were successful in doing. I'll take the next slide, please. And then the next morning, we met out on the site to survey the damage, to see what the damage was done to the road, to try to figure out what we needed to do to repair and what other utilities were impacted. We I'm trying to think how to say it. We reached out to a contractor, RJV Construction, and were able to establish an emergency construction contract for them to come on the site to do the repairs. I'll talk a little bit, I will try to address your concerns, Mr. Counselor, through the chair, about the causes of the break. But then I will turn it over to Ms. Barrett to talk about the actual construction activities and the cleanup efforts. So you can go to the next slide, please. So this is a schematic of the MWRA service area in the vicinity. It's part of the Fells service area, receives water from the Gillis and the Spot Pond pump stations up to the Fells storage tanks, and then flows by gravity through our Section 70 pipeline down the Fells Way and Section 79 pipeline up to the Wakefield border. And at the time, at the day of the break, we were supplying the area from gravity from the storage tank. And at about 2 o'clock that afternoon, we received a call from the Wakefield Water Department that they had a large break at their pump station at the end of our Section 79 pipeline. And they were at the pump station, they heard loud banging, and then one of their pumps ruptured. And they called us to assist in shutting the line down. They had damage to their facilities up there. And then later that evening, we had the break in our main. One of the contributing factors, we believe, to the break in our main was the fact that the main, when it was constructed through ledge section where they removed the natural rock, but then they threw the rock back into the trench and set the pipe on the rock, which is a construction technique we wouldn't use today, because if there's any movement in the pipe, the shards of rock can push against that cast iron pipe and potentially damage the pipe. And we don't know for a fact that that's what occurred. But when we excavated, as you'll see later, we did find evidence of the pipe sitting on ledge. And one of the things we wanted to do was just correct that by making sure that the pipe was reinstalled using proper techniques that we would use today. We did review all of the hydraulic data that we have. We have pressure sensors in our system. We did not see any evidence of either pump operation or any of the work that our crew was doing. The area that's highlighted in red was out of service, and our crew was filling that line because we had done some maintenance work on that line. And there was no evidence that any of the activities of the crew lined up with either of the two breaks, nor any of the pump operations with either of the two breaks. So we basically don't have conclusive evidence as to what caused the failure, either of the failures. However, we did spring into action to repair and to make sure that the pipe was properly bedded so that if the ledge contributed to the failure, it wouldn't contribute in the future. So I think the next slide starts to talk construction. I'll turn it over to Ms. Barrett to talk about the repair activities.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Our first order of business was to get the road open and passable for the abutters so that they could get their cars out and get to work. So we brought RJV in. We met on site that the break occurred on Tuesday night. We met on site at 7:30 on Wednesday morning, and by 10 o'clock, RJV had equipment on site and started doing the road repairs. So you can see that they were just grading that. That's an overview up near the railroad, the slope of the tracks, looking down that they just leveled the whole road. So at least it was safely passable for the residents to get to their driveways. The next slide. So here we exposed our 20-inch water main. It was an old cast iron main, and as you can see, the shards on the right of all the ledge. And also, if you look closely on the left photo on the right side, you can see all the ledge that's still in place on the sides of the trench. So we knew right away that we needed to replace the pipe with proper bedding. So that was the first order of business. Next slide, please. Then we also looked at other utilities of the cities within the roadway, and so we televised the drains and the sewers, and we noticed that the sewer had cracks in it. So we replaced 275 feet of 6-inch sewer, and we installed new sewer manholes on Vinton Street as well. So that is the 6-inch sewer being installed. Next slide, please. That is the piece of pipe where the actual break broke. That is our MWRA 20-inch main. You can see the lateral crack. And on the left picture, and then on the right, you can see it laterally right around 9 o'clock on the pipe. So now we replaced the cast iron pipe with new 20-inch ductile iron pipe. And obviously, we excavated out the ledge that was found within the trench. We put in filter fabric and proper bedding, and then we poly-wrapped the new pipe and installed it. So we installed approximately 255 linear feet of new 20-inch water main of the MWRAs. And we also installed a new 20-inch gate valve at the top of Vinton Street to isolate the line to be able to pressure test it, and we did that. So here is the new gate valve going in at the top of the street on the left side, and on the right side, we capped the new pipe to pressure test it. Next slide, please. So then we also worked on the city of Melrose's 12-inch water main that ran up the street. The 12-inch water main was very close in our trench at the top of the hill. As we got near the bottom, it widened the distance, the separation distance increased a little. So there was concern with the contractor when he was installing the 20-inch main that he could possibly lose the city's 12-inch main and create a whole nother problem. So what we did right away was install a temporary bypass. So it was around 480 feet of temporary bypass that was installed. And then that impacted the 3 homes on Vinton Street. So we provided temporary water services to each one of those homes. When we finished doing one other thing on the 12-inch cities, when we finished doing those, we replaced those homes, the services, with new services after we pressure tested and disinfected the city's water main. So all told, we replaced around 455 feet of the city's 12-inch main. And then we installed 3 new 12-inch gate valves for the city as well. And there was a gate valve at the bottom of the hill that was problematic with an isolation, and then we had to go back another valve, and we had issues there, so we replaced 2 valves at the bottom, and then we also installed a new valve at the top of the hill, same that we did with our line, so that you could isolate and pressure test. So then we moved on to the catch basins and the drainage system for the DCR. So we installed 2 new catch basins on Vinton Street, one a little bit further up on the railroad track side, and then one right at the intersection, as shown in the left photo there. On the right photo, what we also did, we improved the DCR's drainage system because we were told there was historically drainage problems at that intersection. So we ran an additional 12 linear feet of 10-inch PVC pipe from that new catch basin on the left out to the 15-inch drain in the middle of the Lynn Parkway. And so we installed a new drain manhole in the Lynn Parkway and tied in that drainage system. And then as we finished up, then we milled and paved on Vinton Street. This is temporary pavement that we put down. Good practice is to allow the temporary pavement to settle before you put your permanent pavement on top. And we discussed it with the DPW, and the city had requested that we normally do a minimum of 90 to 120 days, but best practice is to allow it to settle over a winter. And that's what was discussed with the city. So the deal is that we will allow this temporary pavement to stay till next spring so that we'll get a full winter season of settlement. And then next spring, we'll come back and we'll do the permanent pavement. And at that time, we'll do pavement markings again as well. So another thing we did was when we did install the new 12-inch water main, we installed a new hydrant for the city. And so that there's roughly 10 feet of new 6-inch pipe connecting that into the 12-inch main. And then on the right, we did the traffic loops. And the next photo, I think, is just pavement markings. So at the intersection and up Vinton Street. And all the water that you can see running down the street is really just, we had cracked a hydrant to just test the drainage to make sure that the drainage was operating properly. So,
and I'll take over from here. So in the process of shutting the line down, an MWRA isolation gate broke. And so our crews were out in Fellsway today digging to do a repair on that last remaining gate. We're hopeful that this is the last thing we need to do to repair. As much as we like to be and work in Melrose, it is our intent to be finished working here and not bothering you any longer. So we're working to replace that gate valve, and then I believe the gas company is scheduled to be working in Vinton Street replacing their gas lines, so that when we come back next year to do final paving for Vinton Street and out in the Fellsway and remark everything, we're hopeful that we will have done everything. We will have improved the city's water lines. We will have improved the storm drain system for DCR. We will have improved your sewer lines and hopefully left good quality pavement and markings behind. And I believe that's it, Mr. Chair. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilors wishing to speak. I have Councilor Stewart, Councilor Thomas, Councilor Tremontosi. We can start off with Councilor Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. The one question that came to mind when you were speaking is, are there other pipes on Rock that we need to be concerned about?
So I guess I'd say that many pipes have been constructed over the years in Rock. I mean, we're constructing pipes today that are in rock, and you're working your way up a hill, you tend to find the rock is high, and that's why there's a hill there. And so it's not so much that the pipe is in rock as it is the condition of the bedding that was used when the pipeline was constructed. So we don't know what the bedding looks like in all of those pipes. So we have pipes all throughout the MWRA service area, and we probably have pipes in ledge all throughout the MWRA service area. The pipes that we construct are not constructed with poor bedding. We put good bedding in. Our predecessors' design standards show and say that things are constructed in good bedding, but obviously in this case there was a section where the bedding was poor, and it exhibited itself by the pipeline breaking. So I guess long story short, we don't know for certain, and there's really no way to tell.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome. Thank you very much. Hello, Director Ellis. How are you? Thank you for the presentation. Everything you showed us today and your response and everything that was done looks like it was done professionally and a wonderful job. I was actually on site. I think I was the first one to call you. I was down at the baseball field next door. That's another story. Is a break further down the line, like at the pump station, the Linden station in Marlin, is that usually a precursor to a break further down the line?
So without knowing what the cause was of either of the breaks, it's hard for us to know what the relationship is between the two, whether something caused both or whether the response to the first caused the second. It's really hard for us to know for sure. The problem is that we don't have the data to analyze to be able to say it with any certainty what the cause was.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, the response was great, and everything that you've done to date has been top-notch. It looks great. I drove on it the other day for the first time. I'm just kind of wondering if this was preventable. You said that there was work being done on the Fellsway from Tremont Street up the Fellsway towards Saugus, but work was not being done across Vinton Street, was it?
No.
Okay, and then there's railroad track work going on right now as well. It's been said there's been a number of heavy machinery, heavy equipment going over those roads. Is there any way to tell if that was a cause of this water main break?
I can't imagine a scenario where it was. I will admit that when we first arrived on this, I mean, I live right off Perkins Street, although on the other side of the line in Stoneham, and I drive this intersection all the time, like every day. And I saw all the construction activity that was going on down there, and my immediate thought was, what did they do? But there really is no indication that there was any relationship to the work that was being done on the railroad tracks to what occurred in our system.
And is there, is there any way of, when that break happened in Wakefield at the pump station in Linden, there's no way of testing the system or flushing water through it to see if the system is intact or it's vulnerable in any spot?
So when their break occurred and and they were able to shut the line down, I guess we could have, there is a technique where you can do leak detection along a line, and we actually did that after we isolated the second break to make sure that the Melrose lines weren't damaged, just to make sure that there wasn't an active leak and we didn't have another potential catastrophic failure on. I guess when the leak occurred or the break occurred at Wakefield system and we shut down, we didn't arrange for that to happen. And if we had arranged for it, it would have been something we would have done in the overnight hours anyway, because it's the kind of thing you do when it's quiet, and the only time it's quiet is like when everybody goes to bed and there's no cars and there's no trains, because you're actually using an acoustic technique to listen to the water spraying underground. So I'm not sure, even had we arranged it, which I wish I could say I thought of that and I arranged that, I did not. But even if we had, we wouldn't have gotten there before 8 o'clock at night, and it would have happened anyway.
Sure. And then you said there was some low-pressure alarms that went off after the Linden pump station break. Did any of them reach into Melrose, or was it solely in Wakefield?
No, it was on the second break. It was the
the
break on the Vinton Street line that created the low-pressure alarms.
Thank you very much for being here and answering my questions.
Councilor Tremontosi?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate the response from the MWRA. Can I safely assume that the MWRA has taken on full responsibility for the work project? In other words, when the city of Melrose is not going to receive a bill for the cost to fix this, is it?
So the work replacing the Melrose mains that the mains that were replaced, we agreed to pay for the cost of replacing the mains in Melrose where they were coincident with the trench when we were excavating and replacing our own line. So in other words, the area where the rock excavation was. And so we agreed to pay for that replacement work. We paid for the sewer line work and the drain work, which it turns out is DCR's drain anyway. There are additional length of main that the city contracted with RJV to replace, which increased the amount of footage of the total work that was done. But we replaced at our expense, I want to say the 255 feet, plus one of the valves that was necessary to get in isolation so that we could replace your main. And we did your sewer work as well. And the temporary water service work we did. The paving is going to be us. The curbing is us. The hydrant, we paid for the hydrant, or they paid for the hydrant?
We were going to pay for the hydrant.
Okay, we paying for the hydrant, et cetera. So the bulk of the work, yes, but there is some work that the city opted to do above and beyond what we believed was necessary as a result of our break.
You were incidental while you're down there with the open up, replace with up-to-date pipes. I'm assuming the curb-to-curb final paving will be done by the MWRA contractors.
Yes, correct.
Good.
Yeah, if I could just jump in. So the city, because RJV Construction was out there doing the water main work, the city pursued an emergency procurement through the state and got approval to have RJV do the additional work under a contract with the city without going out to bid, because it wouldn't have made any sense to bring in another contractor. What we found when we were trying to isolate that section of our main in order for the authority to replace it was that There was one valve that needed to be replaced in order to isolate the main, and the authority couldn't have done the work that was in the area of their trench without that, so we asked them to pay for that because it was required for them to do the work. When we were doing our shutdown, after that, we found there was another valve right in the intersection that was not part of this work that we couldn't get a good shutdown on. So we asked RJV to do that separately. And then we actually had them go a little further up the hill, up Vinton Street, beyond the MWRA's work limits, in order to replace some extra water main, because we didn't want to be repaving the road and not having our whole water main replaced in the whole area where the pavement will be. So that's the additional. We had sufficient funds in our operating budget to cover those costs, so we didn't have to seek any free cash or any additional authorization. It was all through our operating budget.
Excellent. You know, logically it made sense to do that, so. And again, thank you to the MWRA and the contractors in the city for your quick response to the whole situation. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McMaster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Kobus, you mentioned that there was no indication that the work on the railroad contributed to this problem. As part of your fact-finding in the aftermath of what happened, was there any type of investigation into what work was occurring the day in question? So the day of, earlier that day in particular, and the day before, or days before?
From the railroad contractor? Yes. No, we didn't spend a lot of time looking at what the railroad contractor was doing, because the railroad contractor was not touching or operating our pumps, our pipes, or the town of Wakefield's pumps or pipes. And it seems that whatever was occurring was some type of pressure situation within one of our two systems, and not in any way related to construction activity in the vicinity. So we didn't spend a lot of time looking any further into it than that.
So considering that there was ledge that you found and there was rock underneath the pipe, is it unreasonable to think that hammer drilling, if that was happening on or around the tracks, wouldn't necessarily create a situation where rock may create a vibration or friction on the pipes and result in the pipes being compromised?
I guess if you look at the distance where the break occurred from where their abutment work is occurring, the distance is, I mean, we replaced 250 feet of pipe from where the break was down. So 250 feet is kind of a long way. Like we help me with, you're the construction person, we very often, if someone is doing blasting or some type of rock removal work in the vicinity of an MWRA water main, we will require them to put particle velocity detectors if they're within a certain number of peak particle velocity, sorry, within a certain distance of our pipeline. And that the location of the break was well beyond where we would normally require that. And you would think if their work were to have created the situation, that it would have occurred where our Section 70 pipeline passes right underneath the bridge, continues on the Fellsway, a mere feet away from their work, and you would have thought that would have been the section that would have been impacted. So I really don't believe that there's any. It's a good question, but I don't believe that there's any relationship because of the distance.
I think one other nuance that maybe isn't obvious to the council because you're not as familiar with the system is that the pipe that broke. That pipe doesn't serve anything in Melrose at all. That branches off the Fellsway, up Vinton Street, and feeds Wakefield. So this issue at the Wakefield pump station that occurred earlier that same day, that line, its only function, I don't know where it goes beyond Wakefield, but its function in Melrose is just to get to Wakefield, and that pump station is one of the first things in Wakefield after it crosses the line. So, as an engineer, seeing that happened first, and then that the break in Melrose cropped up later in that same day on that same branch. You know, in my mind, there's no way they're unrelated, and the issue in Wakefield happened first. So the chances that something local to the Vinton Street issue were the original cause of the problem just doesn't add up.
That's a good point.
It sounds like the source of the problem, as you said, Ms. Parakis-Ellis, was the pump station in Wakefield. That makes sense. I think the question is, were there confounding factors that may have contributed or intensified what happened? And Mr. Kopis, you had mentioned where the work was being done, and if the break happened somewhere further away from where any work on the bridge was being done, something that Councilor Thomas mentioned just comes to mind is, I think many of us have heard from constituents about freight trains, increased activity, concerns about weight on the tracks, and just whether or not at a certain point further away from perhaps where hammer drilling or something else was happening, if that may have compromised the integrity of the pipes. So that's just, I think that's why we're asking these questions, because there are, certainly maybe what we're asking wouldn't be the cause, but wondering whether or not it may have contributed to it. You're falling on the sword here, sir, and I think that's admirable in terms of an agency, but if there's some culpability from the freight trains or from the railroad, I don't think the MWRA should be held solely responsible in terms of the questioning and footing the bill, as you've come before us tonight to say that you've done, which we appreciate you, and we appreciate what you have done to rectify the situation, and the opportunity that it's presented through the Department of Public Works to make some other needed improvements in the area. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Master. I have Councilor Garapay in queue, but we do have to start full council. Yeah.
All my questions have been answered, so I'll sit there.
If there are no other councilors wishing to speak, what is the will of the committee at this time? Oh, yeah.
Am I able to make just one other comment? Just in response to the public comment, I didn't want to leave that unanswered, the comment from the Ped Bike Committee. So we have, DPW has gone out and measured the road. The pavement that's down right now is temporary, as MWRA mentioned, that's just the binder. The road measures between 26 and 27 feet at the lower end, and then it widens out up around the bend near the tracks. And so we think there's a good chance that we'll be able to fit a climbing bike lane on one side. We did, with the painting, the temporary painting that's there right now, we did try to shift the center line a little bit. I don't know that it was shifted as drastically as what I had hoped. At least it doesn't quite look like it when I've driven it. But we should be able to have an 11-foot lane on the downhill end and a 15-foot lane on the uphill end, which would allow for the 4 feet adjacent to the curb to be a climbing bike lane when we do the final paving. So it is our hope that we can accommodate that. And Finn is exactly right. Our Complete Streets policy requires us to consider Complete Streets elements every time we do a project, whether it's an emergency repair or just part of our paving program, and we absolutely consider that every time.
Thank you. Motion to place on file.
Second.
Motion to place on file made by Councilor Tremontosi, seconded by Councilor Garapay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Gotta get them going.
Motion to adjourn by Councilor Tremontosi, seconded by Councilor Garapay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Back.
Yeah, gotcha.
end there.
No, I appreciate it.
Good evening. Welcome back to the first live city council meeting. It's June 21st. Time is 8:20, and I'm the Councilor Sinella, the council president. Madam Clerk, if you could, please call the roll for this evening.
Councilor Eccles.
Here.
Councilor Garapay.
Here.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Here.
Councilor Jamaluddin. Councilor McMaster.
Here.
Councilor McNaught. Councilor Migliarelli.
Here.
Councilor Stewart.
Here.
Councilor Thomas.
Here.
Councilor Tramontosi.
Here.
And President Sinella.
Here.
11 present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, this meeting is now in session. If there is no objection, I would like to approve our minutes without reading into the record from June 7th and the special meeting from June 14th. Seeing no objection, those minutes are now approved. And if there is no objection, I would like to open the floor for public comment, both virtually and live. If anybody wishes to speak, please come on up to the center table, and if you could state your name, address.
So good evening. My name is David Hoff, 46 Warwick Road. I am here in my role as Chair of the City Commission on Disability. On behalf of the Commission, I want to express our strong support for the proposed $200,000 in funding for a universally accessible playground at Veterans Park on Warren Street. We want to thank Superintendent Joan Bell and Mayor Broder for their support of this initiative, as well as the members of the Appropriations Committee who approved this funding unanimously. And we would like to urge the Council to vote in favor of this funding, which I believe is up on the agenda this evening. So just let me offer a few quick comments, if I will, about the importance of a universally accessible playground. A universally accessible playground is very much needed here in Melrose. Currently, individuals with disabilities and their families must travel to other cities and towns in order to enjoy a facility that is fully accessible. This exclusion of people with disabilities from our community is simply unacceptable. Individuals with disabilities will obviously benefit from this proposed facility in terms of convenient opportunities for exercise and recreation. And the COVID-19 pandemic has reinforced the need for universally accessible recreational activities to maintain health and fitness for all. However, it is important to recognize that this is not simply about children and adults with disabilities. This is about having one community that is not only open to all, but inclusive of all. In my 3 decades working professionally as an advocate for the inclusion of people with disabilities in our communities, I have seen the negative impact of segregating individuals with disabilities from their friends, from their peers, and their communities. It obviously impacts the lives of people with disabilities in terms of having the same opportunities as others in their community, or the lack thereof. However, lack of accessible facilities and programs impacts all members of the community in terms of creating misperceptions of people with disabilities and limiting opportunities for community members to develop relationships with people with disabilities as friends and neighbors. In my experience, the greatest awareness of the capabilities of people with disabilities occurs when people get to spend time with them individually and get to know them not as that person with a disability, but as Laura or John, just another friend, neighbor, or coworker. And a universally accessible playground provides a tremendous opportunity for children with and without disabilities to play together starting at a very young age, developing friendships and relationships. And for children without disabilities, it results in them seeing children with disabilities as just another playmate, another kid who likes to have fun. The long-term benefits of this cannot be underestimated in terms of developing an attitude of inclusiveness, empathy, fairness, and equality, starting at a young age. I'd like to end on this note. We have elected the mayor and you members of the city council of the city to make determinations regarding how our tax dollars are spent. You very much have the right to specify the purposes for which funds are to be used. We are pleased to see the efforts to allocate funds to ensure our parks and recreational activities are fully equitable and inclusive, not only for those with disabilities, but also for girls and women and older adults. On behalf of the Commission on Disability, I want to express our strong opposition to any efforts to use these funds for purposes other than those specified. We appreciate your support for developing the city's first fully accessible playground and maintaining the use of funds as intended. The Commission looks forward to working with the city on the development of this much-needed universal playground space. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Huff. Do we have anybody in the virtual world?
One individual, if you're in the room and would like to speak, could you raise your digital hand? They have the inattention notice anyway. I don't think they're not raising their hand.
Not raising their hand.
Nobody else
Okay.
here?
Anybody else wishing to speak in person? Seeing none, without
Motion
objection.
to close public comment.
Use unanimous consent without objection. We will close public comment. Thank you. Do we have any communications from His Honor?
We have Order 2021-155, appointment of Lindsay Toghill to the Historic District Commission, said term to end on the last day of February 2024.
All right, that'll go to Health, Education, and Welfare.
Order 2021-156, acceptance of a $42,105 grant from the Massachusetts Office of Business Development Regional Pilot Grant Program.
Councilor Eccles.
Mr. President, this time I would move for immediate consideration on this order.
Okay, any objection to immediate consideration? Seeing none, this order is now before us, and if there is no objection, I would also suspend the rules. I believe we have someone speaking on this order. Yes.
So, yes.
If you'd like to,
I'm with the Stoneham Chamber of Commerce.
you want to come up to the mic, you mind? And if your name and address.
Sure, Megan Day. I'm with the Stoneham Chamber of Commerce, so I'm actually in Stoneham, right now, Street.
My former neighbor.
So we are a co-applicant on this grant, and I know Margot was unable, I don't know if I should say it, to come today because she has a conflict. And so I offered to come speak if anyone had questions, and I can give a brief overview.
Sure.
Okay. So in February, we actually partnered with Mayor Broder and the City of Melrose to apply for a grant through the Massachusetts Office of Business Development. It's a regional pilot program, and we were looking to fund a private shuttle service. And we were not awarded that grant, but we were invited to apply for a smaller grant. And so I worked with Mayor Broder, and we settled on a downtown revitalization grant where we have very different downtowns. So for Stoneham, it was, we were looking to rent or lease the space next to the Stoneham Theater, the Greater Boston Stage Company. It had become vacant for the first time in 40 years. And they were looking, prior to the pandemic, they were at capacity. And so this would give them a little breathing room. So we looked at the model as kind of, our downtown is pretty dependent on the Greater Boston Stage Company, whereas you have a bit more of a walkable shopping district. And so for your piece, we looked at the model of ours being centered around a specific landmark, whereas for you, we thought doing something innovative to kind of revitalize, or not revitalize, but kind of bring more foot traffic. And we had looked to what Needham and Newton were doing, which is this pop-up in vacant retail spaces. And so what they do, it's an application program there's a consulting firm called Up Next. And so we applied for was to have funds working with Up Next to kind of activate space in Melrose and take applications and bring in these pop-up stores in what would be an otherwise vacant store location. So that was the grant, and we were awarded it. We were awarded in May. Most applicants were awarded in February or March, and we were required to still meet the June 30th deadline for expenditure of funds. So that's kind of the overview. I'm sorry, it's a little rushed, but.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Day? Councilor Trematozzi?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President. Is there any required matching funds, city and town funds?
No, none.
Great. Perfect, thank you.
Anybody else, any questions? What is the will of the council?
Motion for passage?
Second.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Grigoritis, seconded by Councilor Migliarelli. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any new business?
We do have Order 2021-157, in accordance with Article 1, Section 5610 of the Melrose Administrative Code, appointment of Joanne Paparian, 6 Patriot Way, Melrose, Mass., as Assistant City Clerk commencing June 7, 2021, term renewal on the first Monday in February.
Mr. President,
Councilor Migliarelli.
I'd like to request immediate consideration for Order 2021-157.
We have immediate consideration before us on 157. Any objections? Seeing none, this is now before us. I believe we have Ms. Paparian here this evening.
Thank you all.
Have any prepared remarks, or
I do. As much as you know, I like to
who's going to be our clerk
speak
right now?
publicly.
I have a quick statement. Thank you, Mr. President and Council, for the opportunity to present Ms. Paparian. Many of you know her. For those who don't, she is the key component to the functionality of the Elections Division, the process, relationships with the Secretary of State's office, and by extension, the City Clerk's office. It's not hyperbolic for me to say that the 2020 election would not have run the way it did without her expertise, her demeanor, and her innate ability to prioritize. I have had the opportunity to work with her for 4 years and know it's 100% for the betterment of the City Clerk's office, for City Hall generally, and most importantly to the residents of Melrose to access her talents as the new Assistant City Clerk, and happily she will continue her affiliation with the Elections Office.
Thank you, Ms. Foote. As most of you know, I started with the city back in 2015 as a poll worker. And from there, my love for elections really grew. Then I started with the former election administrator, working part-time during the busy time of elections and the census. Then I bounced over to the city clerk's office when a full-time opening applied. So I seem to keep going back and forth. I love the public. I love dealing with the residents of Melrose, and I like serving them and providing the customer service that we're able to give to them. The elections has always been one of my favorite jobs, and I hope that I still get to dabble in it a little bit. I am looking forward to working in the clerk's office and learning the new roles. I feel like this is just a natural career path for me, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
I welcome any questions.
I didn't see any hands go up. Councilor Tramitose?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So is it fair to say you're going to still be with us for the election? And you're going to be in charge of the whole election process, or how's that going to be
I
done?
believe we posted for the election administrator position, so I'm hoping, depending on what experience comes in, I'm hoping to still be able to have some involvement. If they allow me to, I'm willing to do so.
Well, you probably will have to teach the new person that comes in any event, teach how the proper
And-
role of the election clerk is.
And I'd be happy to do so. I mean, everything with elections for me from 2019 forward was brand new, from the dual elections to the recount. It was always exciting. So it was a hard decision to make to do this, and leaving elections behind, knowing that I can still actually work with the election administrator, kind of made that decision a little bit easier for me.
Well, you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to elections, so we want to definitely tap into that, so.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor McMaster?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. Thank you both for being here. Excited to see you before us tonight, and thank you, Ms. Foote, for this election. I think it's excellent. It's a loss for elections, but I think those of us who are familiar with your work, Joanne, know that you carry yourself in a very unassuming way. You're a quiet foot soldier, and I'm glad that Ms. Foote recognized how instrumental you were in the last election. I think that was important for her to do publicly, and it shows good leadership. And I'm excited to have you in the clerk's office after what I expected to be a favorable vote. So,
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. And I always have enjoyed working with all of you. I feel like when you all started new, I was fairly new at the same time, so it was nice to get to know you and grow with you.
Any other questions? Councilor Grigoritis?
Thank you, President Snella. Thank you both for being here tonight. Just to echo the comments of my fellow councilors, I don't think we often get to praise public employees. We usually talk about when things go wrong, and I just think both of you, but especially Ms. Perparian, since you're before us tonight, have brought a level of dignity and respect and focus to the work that you do, and that you serve this body and the residents of this community very well and reflect so well on the city. And I'm so excited to have you taking on this new role. And then at this time, I would make a motion for passage.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Grigoritis.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Tramitose. Any discussion? Seeing none. I was going to say, Madam Clerk, call the roll, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Next up, Order 2021-158, Rose Street Underground Duct.
Councilor Thomas?
I'd like to make a motion for immediate consideration of this matter solely for the purposes of setting a public hearing.
Second.
We have immediate consideration before us. Any objections? Seeing none. Okay, this is now before us.
I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for this order in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, for July 19th, 2021, at 7:30 p.m.
Councilor Thomas made a motion to set the public hearing date for July 19th at 7:30.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Grigoritis. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Order 2021-159, 21 Orient Ave Utility Pole Relocation.
Councilor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'd like to ask for immediate consideration of this matter solely for the purposes of setting a public hearing.
Second.
Immediate consideration is now being sought. Any objection? Seeing none. Councilor Thomas.
I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for this order in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, for July 19th, 2021, at 7:35 p.m.
Councilor Thomas was making a motion to set the public hearing on Order 2021-159 for July 19th, 7:35. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Garapay. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Order 2021-160, the Board of Registrars of Voters respectfully requests that the Honorable City Council confirm the consolidation of non-compliant polling locations in accordance with information provided by Secretary of State William Galvin's office.
That'll go to Legal and Legislative Committee.
Order 2021-161, communication from Massachusetts State Lottery Commission regarding Keno monitor at West Wyoming Market, 49 West Wyoming Ave, Melrose, Mass.
Councilor Stewart.
Mr. President, I move to seek immediate consideration of Order 2021-161 for purposes of complying with the Massachusetts State Lottery 21-day response period.
Councilor Stewart seeking immediate consideration. Any objection? Seeing none. Go ahead, Councilor Stewart.
I'd like to make a motion for passage for Order 2021-161. To not pass?
So that would be ought not to pass.
Ought not to pass. Thank you.
Councilor Stewart's making a motion for ought not to pass on 2021-161. Didn't hear a second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Garapay. Any discussion? Councilor Stewart.
Through the chair, I'd just like to speak to this briefly. This is similar to what we faced last year at the mobile station. The Mass Lottery is looking to put a Keno screen in the West Wyoming Market, which is in my ward. I think there is strong opposition from the ward, and I do not support this from the standpoint of consistency with what we voted in the past. So, Mr. President, that's where I think we should consider not passing. Thank you.
Anybody else on discussion? Seeing none, so a yes vote would be ought not to pass, so it would not pass, so everybody understands. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, so Does not pass. Or it passed, not to pass.
Order 2021-4, a resolution for expanding access to local government in the city of Melrose.
Do the sponsors, were you seeking anything on that? Oh,
Send it to committee.
go to appropriations. Any orders out of order?
No.
Anything on the calendar?
No.
Any reports under Rule 53? Like traffic or anything? Okay, seeing none. Any orders from committee? Orders from committee?
I can go first, yeah. So I would like to make a motion to pull up Order 2021-134 from earlier. From committee?
So the wayfinding,
Wayfinding,
okay?
yep.
So motion to pull 121, 134 out of committee. Was there a second on that?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Stewart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Is it a
opposed?
is it a roll call?
Funds
Point of
is a
order?
roll
I think
call.
it's appropriations, roll call.
Oh, that's
Just to pull out of committee, right?
This is
Yeah.
for-
Oh, I'm sorry, you're pulling it out of committee
Just pulled it
first.
out of committee.
Sorry about that, yeah.
So that order is now before us. What is the will of the committee?
Mr. President, this comes with unanimous recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Okay, so you have a motion for
Second.
passage,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Migliarelli. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Moving back to 121, 119. We don't need to pull those out of committee, they're on the agenda.
21-119, all of these are on the agenda, they are in committee, they should be pulled up, and they are pulled up by the chair and then read by the chair.
Counselor Eccles?
Order 2021-119, acceptance of the FY21 firefighter safety equipment grant awarded to the Melrose Fire Department by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Fire Services in the amount of $14,941. This comes with a recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
Need a motion to pull it out of committee, though.
Oh, if it's on there, okay. So make a motion to pull it out of committee.
Motion to pull out of committee.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Gregoritis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Counselor Eccles.
This time, I move for passage on Order 2021-119.
Second.
Motion for passage by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Order 2021-130, an appropriation from free cash 01324001 in the amount of $265,000 to Fire Capital Outlay Account 019-313-551-081 to purchase an ambulance. At this time, I move to pull this up from appropriations.
Second.
Motion to pull it up from appropriations made by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
This time, I move for passage on Order 2021-130.
Motion for passage made
Second.
by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart, like Batman and Robin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, we need a roll call that one.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Order 2021-133, an appropriation from free cash account 01324-001 in the amount of $502,500 to various park capital accounts as set forth herein. At this time, I move to pull this up from the Appropriations Committee.
Second.
Motion to pull up 133 from appropriations made by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
This time I move for passage on Order 2021-133.
Second.
Motion to pass 133 made by Councilor Eccles, seconded by Councilor Gregoritis. Councilor Garapay.
On discussion.
Discussion.
Last week, we received a memo from the Park Commission, Commissioner Chairperson Gardner, asking the council to amend Order 2021-133 to give the commission the authority over the location, scheduling, and management of this park project, or these park projects. The Park Commission has been very successful over the years. They've had a great track record with each project that they have undertaken. But I do believe that the charter already speaks to what they were trying to accomplish. It does give them oversight authority on all projects that are before them. But the bigger concern that I have with the amendment is that they actually felt that they needed to present an amendment in order to make sure the project moves forward and gets completed in a timely manner. I think that's the more concerning portion of this amendment that we received. I think that it's troubling that they actually had to go to that route, go down that avenue in order to try to make awareness to what they're trying to accomplish. So I just wanted to say that I fully support this, as I have from day one, and that's it.
Councilor McMaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with Councilor Garapay. I found it disconcerting that we received a memo from the Parks Commission basically being asked to be empowered with what it's already empowered with, which is oversight over what happens on parkland. That being said, the way I interpreted the memo is that the Parks Commission is trying to fight to be relevant. I think the Parks Commission is relevant because the administrative code of the city charter makes the commission relevant. I think the Parks Commission is relevant because of the expertise and the experience of its members, some of whom have served for over 20 years. I think the Parks Commission is relevant because of its proven track record of success. That being said, the mayor is the ultimate decision maker. The mayor drives the direction. The Parks Commission executes it. And I think the key word in the administrative code is oversee, which means project management. So what I'm hopeful is that after this evening is that the mayor sits down with members of the Parks Commission and explains where he is looking to go with these projects, and that the Parks Commission is empowered and allowed to fulfill its statutory responsibility. I think that's very important, and I think that's not out of order considering the fact that we did receive this memo. I think it's also important to state publicly that this is not project management that under local law can be given to the Department of Public Works or to the Office of Planning and Community Development. It's very clear that the jurisdiction is given to the Parks Commission. So I just think it's important for us to note that publicly. I agree. I don't think an amendment is appropriate. I think some of the language that was proposed would be a breach of the authority because that authority exists, and I think some of that language went a bit beyond what's already codified in city law. But I do think that we need to ensure as a council and monitor the situation going forward, again, to make it certain that the Parks Commission is doing what it is fundamentally supposed to do under city law. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? Councilor Gregoritis?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was also surprised to see this amendment offered to us. It's very atypical for a member of the public to offer, which in all intents and purposes in this body they are. Typically only councilors are able to offer amendments, which I believe was the intent, to hope that the council would take it up. I agree with the interpretation that this sort of seemed to be a question around a lack of clarity of the language in the charter, and the way to address that is through a charter review, not through amending an order. And I think also as we move forward and we all find our new normal in this return to in-person, just a reminder that all of us, including the Parks Commission, do our work under the open meeting law, which requires no deliberation outside of a meeting, so I know it's also just very burdensome for them to take on a real complex project and be involved in the level of detail and do that in a way that engages the public and is in compliance with law, because everything has to happen in a meeting that's been duly posted. So I think in addition to the larger conversation about the vision, I think also just kind of to figure out what is feasible as they balance both their obligation to the public and the open meeting law and their charter obligation to oversee projects that I think are growing in complexity and scope. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you. If I could, Counselor, if we could maybe motion to conjoin some orders, maybe speed things up a little bit?
That would be awesome, yeah. So, I believe I have to read them all.
Well, yeah.
So, we can go from
4 through 8, 9, 12, and 13.
Right. Okay. I would make a motion to conjoin Order 2021-135, Order 2021-136, Order 2021-137, Order 2021-138, Order 2021-139, Order 2021-145, Order 2021-146, Order 2021-147. Nope.
48 and 49.
48 and 4, oh, gotcha. Order 2021-148, Order 2021-149.
16, 17,
Order 2021-152, Order 2021-153,
and 18.
Order 2021-154.
Councilor Eccles made a motion to join some orders for purposes of voting, which we will do individually, but pulling those up out of committee. Do we have a second?
Point of order, Mr. President. The order number, and I believe this was read, 2021-152 is the bond, and that came out of the Appropriations Committee with a recommendation that it not pass. So I think
These
that
are being conjoined to be pulled up, then they'll be voted on individually.
individual, okay.
Yep.
Second.
So seconded by Councilor Thomas.
For a second.
Any discussion? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, these are now before us, and if you could now individually.
Right, okay. Order 2021-135, an appropriation from free cash, account 01-324001, in the amount of $255,000 to police capital accounts as set forth herein. This comes with a recommendation for passage, and at this time I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Eccles, seconded by Councilor Stewart. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Order 2021-136, an appropriation from free cash, account 01-324001, in the amount of $480,243 to various public works accounts as set forth herein. This comes, I think I lost my place. No?
Yep.
Nope.
Right.
This comes with the recommendation for passage. This time I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Eccles, seconded by Councilor Stewart. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Order 2021-137, appropriation from free cash, account 01-324001, in the amount of $270,000 to various public works, snow and ice accounts as set forth herein. This comes with a recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Eccles, seconded by Councilor Stewart. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Order 2021-138, an appropriation from free cash 01324-001 in the amount of $825,000 to various public works, school facilities, capital accounts as set forth herein. This comes with recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Counselor Eccles, seconded again by Counselor Stewart. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Counselor Eccles.
Order 2021-139, an appropriation from free cash account 01324-001 in the amount of $30,000 to veteran professional services account 015-432-529000. This comes with recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
A motion for passage made by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart. On discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I didn't present under Rule 53 because I did want to speak very briefly to this. The bids are coming in over $30,000, so I just wanted to flag that for the council. If you recall, this is for the honor roll on Main Street that honors our veterans. So I would expect that the Veterans Advisory Board and myself would be advocating that the administration find some additional money to complete that project. It would be nice if we could get that done before Veterans Day. So time is of the essence. I just wanted to make that known to my colleagues this evening, and I'll be raising it with the administration as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else on discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Counselor Eccles, number 9.
Going to do 145?
Yep.
That was Public Works.
Comes from appropriations.
Okay, so we'll just keep going now.
Yeah.
Order 2021-148, an appropriation in the amount of $43,423.46 from water retained earnings, account 6100-319000 to Water Reserve Fund, account 8416-49000. This comes to recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Eccles.
Yes.
Counselor Garapay.
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Counselor McMaster.
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes to 148.
All right, we get to take a break. Counselor Gregoritis. Order 2021-146.
Oh, correct.
Coming out of committee.
Order 2021-146, adopting Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22G, undisabled parking. This comes from Legal and Ledge. At this time, I make a motion to pull up from committee.
Second.
Motion to pull it up from committee made by Counselor Gregoritis, seconded by Counselor Migliarelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that is now before us.
Thank you. Order 2021-146 comes from the Legal and Legislative Committee with a recommendation for passage, and at this time, I move for passage.
Motion for passage
Second.
made by Counselor Gregoritis, seconded by Counselor Eccles. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And 147 comes out of Legal and Ledge.
Does? Order 2021-147, development of stormwater ordinance to meet permit requirements, comes from the Legal and Legislative Committee, and at this time, I motion to pull this up from committee.
Second.
Motion to pull from committee made by Counselor Gregoritis, seconded by Counselor Migliarelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is now before us.
Order 2021-147 comes from the Legal and Legislative Committee with a recommendation for passage, and at this time, I will motion for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Gregoritis, seconded by Councilor Migliarelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, this motion passes. Madam Clerk, do you have a question? It's not money. Councilor Eccles, 148.
We did.
Did we do those?
Yeah, we did that.
And
149.
145.
Go back to
My
145.
bad. You get 18 months to get this right, just so people know. Get it.
Order 2021-145, acceptance of a net metering credit agreement between the City of Melrose and Hampshire Power for energy and cost savings. The agreement authorizes the production of alternative energy on behalf of the city through a state-endorsed program. This comes with a recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Eccles, seconded by Councilor Stewart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes. Skip back, I guess, up to 12
13. 149.
and 48,
9.
49.
Order 2021-149, an appropriation in the amount of $400,000 from water retained earnings, account number 6100-319-000 to the fiscal 2022 water budget. This comes with a recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
All right, motion for passage made by Councilor Eccles, seconded by Councilor Stewart. I should have just taped that phrase, would have been a lot easier. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Councilor Eccles.
Yes.
Councilor Garapay.
Yes.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Councilor McMaster.
Yes.
Councilor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Councilor Stewart.
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
Councilor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Order, what?
Go ahead.
Order 2021-150, a transfer in the amount of $102,600.
Point of order. Councilor Migliarelli, Chair of Finance.
Finance.
Oh. Lost track.
Okay, you got carried away.
All right. Order 2021-150, a transfer in the amount of $102,600 from the Fire Department Salary and Wages account number 012211-511000 to various salary and wage accounts as set forth herein. I motion to move up from committee.
Second.
Okay, motion from Chair Migliarelli to move it out of committee, seconded by Councilor Gregoritis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just the
Point,
pulling up is.
point of order. I believe because this is a transfer, Mr. President, that it'd be a viva voce vote.
We're pulling it from committee.
Oh, my apologies again,
okay.
Mr. President.
I'm going to write that down.
2 for 2.
2 for 2. Okay, so it is now before us. I'm sorry, did we motion?
Yes, I'm going to now. Order 2021-150, motion for passage.
Motion
Second.
made for passage, made by Councilor Migliarelli, seconded by Councilor Eccles. Any discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Eccles.
Yes.
Councilor Garapay.
Yes.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Councilor McMaster.
Yes.
Councilor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Councilor Stewart.
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
Councilor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes,
That's 9 yes.
All right.
passes.
Order 2021-151, a transfer in the amount of $30,000 from health insurance account number 019142-549201 to city solicitor property insurance account number 011512-544310. Motion to move up from committee.
Motion to move out of committee made by Chair
Second.
Migliarelli, seconded by Councilor Gregoritis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is now before us.
So this order 2021-151 comes from Finance Committee with a recommendation for passage. So I motion to recommend for passage.
Motion for passage made by Councilor Migliarelli, seconded
Second.
by Councilor Gregoritis. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Eccles.
Yes.
Councilor Garapay.
Yes.
Councilor Gregoritis.
Yes.
Councilor McMaster.
Yes.
Councilor Migliarelli.
Yes.
Councilor Stewart.
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
Councilor Trementozzi.
Yes.
President Sinella.
Yes.
9 yes.
Order 2021-152, authorizing a bond for the replacement of the salt shed. This comes from the Appropriation Committee with a recommendation that it ought not to pass. And at this time, I make a motion that this ought not to pass. Sorry?
Did you pull it out of committee?
Oh,
Didn't we already?
didn't we?
We did.
With the combined? Yeah.
My bad, my bad.
Can you just,
We have a motion before us on 2021-152.
comes without recommendation?
Comes without recommendation for passage.
Recommendation is for?
Ought not to pass. Correct? And do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Stewart. All those in favor, oh, excuse me, this is a bond. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Counselor Eccles?
No.
Counselor Garapay?
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis?
No.
Counselor McMaster?
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli?
No.
Counselor Stewart?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi?
Yes.
6 yes.
Wait, President.
Yes?
Stated.
Two more.
We're almost there.
Yep. Order 2021-153, an appropriation from PEG Access Cable Fund number 2922 in the amount of $276,505 to MMTV and Melrose Public Schools. This comes from the Appropriations Committee with a recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Eccles?
Yes.
Counselor Garapay?
Yes.
Counselor Gregoritis?
Yes.
Counselor McMaster?
Yes.
Counselor Migliarelli?
Yes.
Counselor Stewart?
Yes.
Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Counselor Trementozzi?
Yes.
President Sinella?
Yes.
9 yes.
Good work.
Order 2021-154, election of a clerk of committees pursuant to the charter of the City of Melrose, Section 2-8, appointments of the City Council. This comes from the Appropriations Committee with a recommendation for passage. At this time, I move for passage.
Second.
Motion for passage made by Counselor Eccles, seconded by Counselor Stewart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn made by Counselor Stewart, seconded by Counselor Migliarelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good evening.